Oh my Mecha Stepdad YouTube. It's Ben Barrett back again with the one, the only Jordan Geordie Fordy forward, who's going to tell us all about the game you see behind us on the beautiful television that we still have, The Surge. Jordan, you've been playing quite a lot of The Surge. You've kind of been doing all of our coverage for it, in fact.
I am The Surge.
And you're liking it. Let's get that out of the way straight away. We're going to have a review and all the rest of it coming up next week, I think. Yeah, that's when it's out, right?
Yeah, 16th.
Yeah, it's out on Tuesday. But before that, we have 4 big questions about The Surge that we're gonna go through in this video. And the first one is it more similar to Dark Souls or Lords of the Fallen, which of course was Deck 13, they're the guys who make it, their last attempt to pay homage to From Software's RPG.
So the good news is it's definitely more similar to Dark Souls.
That is good news because Lords of the Fallen was medium.
At
best.
It was medium. As a Dark Souls clone, it wasn't really great, was it?
No, it wasn't super. So what makes it closer to Dark Souls than to Lords of the Fallen? Or what's it done right that maybe Lords of the Fallen wasn't doing?
The combat just it meshes together properly. Everything, it feels fluid. Like you've got a lot more movement than you did in Lords of the Fallen. There's no shield or anything, so you can't turtle like you can in Dark Souls, but there's a lot more freedom in the movement and a lot more. You have to be aggressive and you have to take the front foot. Whereas Lords of the Fallen, it felt clumsy the way that you could get hits in. It felt clumsy the way that you could get hit yourself.
Do you think it maybe gets a little bit more similar towards, obviously Bloodborne is definitely more aggressive than Dark Souls was traditionally. Do you think it's actually maybe closer to that even?
Yeah.
A lot of that comes down to the movement, right? And like how quickly you can kind of dodge in and out. Do you think it really is the movement that's maybe the core of the game?
Fortunately, you get a lot of stamina. So you've got a stamina bar, a power bar, which determines like your finishing moves and things like that.
Right. So they've decoupled those two. Which probably helps quite a lot in that regard as well.
But it refills a lot quicker than it would in Dark Souls. Instead of rolling, you can sort of dash forward and dash back side and stuff. You can also do sort of sprint and slide along your knees attacks and things like that. But yeah, there's a lot more movement. You move the same, I think, in whatever armor you've got. So it doesn't matter if you've got heavy armor or light armor. The only difference is that it takes up more of your core power.
Sure, to actually like move around. So it's not like there's kind of lengths of dashes and different numbers of invulnerability frames. It's just you can wear whatever you like, but it's about using your resources, not what those resources do.
Yeah,
I see. And when I was watching you play a little bit the other day, it was like the stamina bar was going up far faster than I've ever seen it go up in Dark Souls, for example.
Yeah, and it means like, especially in boss fights or fights against bigger enemies, like, so you don't have a shield to hide behind, but you can move back a lot more. You've got a lot more freedom of movement than you would traditionally.
Question number 2, Jordan and lovely audience, is boss fights. Now, we saw the first one, and I was a little disappointed when I saw it, because I honestly, I think The Surge looks pretty good as well. It's very much kind of in my wheelhouse. I like sci-fi more than I like fantasy. I'm really glad someone's doing this. Really like what I saw of the game before the first boss fight, and then we saw the first boss fight. It was a little bit janky, it seemed a bit weird. You've now played that boss fight again, and you've played a second boss fight. What do you think of the boss fights? How was the second one compared to the first?
So the first one, there were a few problems with it. Firstly, I played it on preview code, and I spoke to developers, and they said they actually wish they didn't send that code out because it had a sort of a collision bug where when you attacked its legs, you sort of ended up sort of climbing up its legs, and
I saw a little bit of that when you were
so that was problematic to start with. It's just not a particularly impressive boss fight. Like it's not grand or big. The mech's large and stuff, but it's got like 3 or 4 attacks at max. It's not got multiple stages. It's not a classic boss fight. It's just sort of it felt like starter fare, and it was quite easy.
Right. It seemed that from kind of how you beat it.
But repetitive as well. Which again, that reminded me a lot of Lords of the Fallen actually, because the boss fights in that very much you just repeat the same stage over and over again. Fortunately, the second boss fight,
which I think people can watch on the channel, right? We have another video.
Yeah, it's called like Firebug.
Firebug, yeah.
It's against this giant drone with thrusters, hence fire, and it's got like 8 legs. But yeah, it's got multiple stages. So first, it's got all of its limbs and stuff, and you've got to sort of whittle its limbs down, and then it changes into a more aggressive stage where it uses fire and stuff.
It spins around a lot from
there. Like it lasts about 5 minutes. It's got like twice as many attacks as the first one. Like, just the arena is a lot more cinematic, and, the fact that there's fire and stuff. Yeah, it felt much more like it's not quite on Dark Souls levels. Like, it's still not as difficult, which is fine, because
well, it is boss 2, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, a lot of time when I think about Dark Souls, I think about, particularly because I'm quite a big fan of Dark Souls 3, I think about the Forgotten King, think about some of the DLC bosses and that, which are rock hard.
Yeah.
But I don't really think about not even the Asylum Demon, the guy on the bridge in the first game.
Right.
It wasn't really that hard.
Yeah.
Particularly now that you know what you're doing, but these bosses are that version, right? Like, they are, that second boss kind of is how the game works.
Yeah, like, I think it took me 8 attempts in total.
Right, okay.
Which is, I mean, I think that's sort of broadly similar.
That's roughly when your patience starts running out.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it was conquerable just before then, which, for me personally, like, I love Dark Souls, but sometimes you're just like, it takes a lot of grit.
Yeah, it takes some time. It takes some shouting at the television.
Yeah.
I think that one of the other things about the Firebug fight that I noticed was it has these phases, but it also, like, it feels like every time you're attacking it, you're actually kind of making progress. It's not like you're whittling down a health bar, but like you take off a leg in like a series of attacks or 2 series of attacks. So it is actually always changing, because it does have these 2 major phases, but it feels more like it's got like 12 phases because you're taking off a leg each time and it's acting slightly differently. Its animations change a little bit. I think that is actually an improvement over some of the stuff I've seen in Dark Souls and in other games of that sort, where it just feels like, okay, whittle the health bar down and then maybe something will happen when it gets to 0, whereas this is more modular.
And one fun bit about it as well, which I didn't see in the Firebug boss fight, but I did find in the first one against Pax, I think it's called.
Yeah.
There's a special way to beat every boss. So against Pax, when it's doing sort of like a stamping attack, if it puts all of its weight onto one limb and you've damaged it enough, if you attack at the right time, it actually just lops the leg off completely, and it's like disabled from then on, and you just have to sort of attack its main bit until it's dead.
Sort of like taking the tail off.
Yeah.
Right?
So I didn't find what the secret thing was with Firebug.
But it's another area you can kind of explore as you play the game more and more.
And apparently, like, every boss has 1 or 2 at least.
All right, so that's bosses and comparisons out of the way. Question number 3, Jordan, for you, hope you're enjoying the interrogation, is character development, gear, leveling up. How does all that sort of stuff work? How does it compare to Lords of the Fallen and Dark Souls?
So, Lords of the Fallen had kind of a clumsy...
I felt there was a lot of stuff, and I didn't understand any
there
of
was
it.
a lot
Maybe
of
I'm
stuff.
stupid, it's definitely
and like the way it dropped you into it was very much you just pick like 1 of 3, and then it didn't really pick up, like, go back to the class stuff until like a couple of levels later. Dark Souls, there's everyone always knows there's loads of builds you can do, especially multiplayer. Some people come with.
So what you select at the start doesn't have that much impact, particularly, which I suppose is how it should be, because it lets you experiment as you go through the game.
The Surge, it's so the armor's all modular. So you get like you get your arm each, both your legs, your body, and your head.
Right, and you can equip a bit onto each.
Yeah, and you can pick from all the different armor sets. There's loads of gear. The weapons from the first hour I played, I wasn't particularly impressed because there were like 5 or 6 weapons, and they all seemed fairly standard. Sword, twin attack thing.
It doesn't matter
big
if it's
hammer
made out of scrap and it's actually a crowbar. It's a one-handed sword, right?
Yeah.
Like you can see through that.
But like after the next hour, I had like 20 weapons.
Right, I see.
And like there weren't huge differences between them, but it felt like if you upgraded them enough, and there was definitely scope for that. I don't think it's as versatile and compelling as Dark Souls like gear, where you can add like fire damage and different things like that, and there's a lot of like very unique.
It feels like you can spec against certain bosses if you're having problems, and then in PvP that all kind of comes together as a thing, right?
It feels like that's less of a thing, but one aspect of it which is really interesting is injectables. So as part of your you have a core power, which is like that's how many things you can bolt onto yourself basically. So if like you're level 20, you've got 20.
So that's like the limiting factor.
And some things use 3 or 4 power core whatever.
Sure. Okay.
And some use like none. So so injectables are like health is one of your injectables. So you can have like a instant health regen as like one of them. And if you find enough, you can you can stack those up. So you can have like 9. There's also like overtime health boosts, but there's more interesting ones too. So there's ones where you can trade off power, like the energy you accumulate for health. So if you get a good flurry of hits in, which builds up your power, you can then bank that for a bit of health.
Right, I see. And then then you can kind of decide: do you want to be better at inflicting damage, or do you at this point want to try and heal yourself back up? And it gives you more and more options. Right?
Yeah, and there's loads as well that I haven't even really explored.
Sure, and presumably they'll get more complex as the game goes
so
on.
there's
At
ones
this point,
like
we've only seen the first few hours of the game.
Yeah, and like there's ones you can. Again, a lot of them feature trade-offs with power.
Right.
So you can trade power for temporary attack boost, or you can trade it for elemental damage or like environmental damage. And the interesting part of that trade-off is that you need power to do the finishing moves.
Okay,
which is how you get your gear.
Yeah, so there's kind of a...
Yeah.
It's not just like, okay, trade one in for the other when you don't need one.
Yeah.
There's like a whole ecosystem where, okay, well, if you trade this for this, you get that.
Yeah.
Maybe you get to finish the fight, but you don't get as good gear. But then you need the gear to be able to upgrade yourself further, to be able to continue to do that transfer, etc. And so
About 6 hours in, it got really difficult to sort of pick what to do. But at the same time, you could just overhaul your character.
Yeah,
which is
I
really
think is
nice.
important. Yeah. I think like one of the best things about Dark Souls and why it was so popular is it's actually fairly simple. I mean, you can pretty much go through the game pressing R1 and holding L1.
Yeah.
Now, we've talked a little bit about the shield and how it kind of doesn't seem to exist in the Surge, but I think building on top of that is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And it sounds like what they've done here is they've made systems that you can dive into if you want to.
Yeah.
But if you don't, you can just
you
hit
can.
the enemies, get the power, use your finishing moves, and so on.
Yeah, exactly. It's not essential, and to an extent, even if you scale up your gear, it's not going to help you beat the boss. It's whether or not you can actually beat the boss.
And finally, Jordan, question number 4, and this is very, very important to people that are into these sorts of games, is kind of the world and the narrative and how it's built up. People really like getting into this stuff, and I think this is something that is now true of a lot of different games, and maybe we can avoid saying the words Dark Souls quite so much for the rest of the video. But like, people have kind of taken that idea of world building through environments and not telling you everything, and it's like an advanced version of the old audio diaries, right?
Yeah.
So how does the Surge do it?
So it's a lot more. There are a lot of audio logs you find. It's a lot more obvious than Souls. Does that fix the problem?
That's fine. Yeah, that's completely fine.
Yeah, there's a lot more obvious storytelling. So you've got big TV screens that sort of explain, like so in the world you're working on this like high-tech facility, and they're trying to sort of fix all the world's problems through firing rockets into the air.
That's how I would do it.
And so it's got this sort of like Silicon Valley like personality behind it, and you've got these TV screens with him basically explaining like all the great things about being in the company to you. Meanwhile, there's audio logs, sort of people talking either pre or post event about what's going on in the company. I don't think you ever find out what the event is, and I think that's the intrigue.
Oh, I see. Sure. I mean, you might, but it would be towards the end of the game.
Yeah. So you start the game off sort of just. It's your first day at work. While you're getting all your implants and stuff, something goes wrong, you wake up, and you're being sort of attacked by a little drone, and that's it. That's all the introduction you get.
Yeah.
And I think 6 hours in, and that you know a lot more about what the situation is around you, but you don't necessarily know anything else about what's going, what happened.
It sounds like they tried to blend that sort of post-apocalyptic / mysterious world storytelling with the fact that their world is messed up, but it doesn't feel like it's not like everybody's dead. It's not like there's some kind of virus that's killed 99.9% of people. Things aren't good, but it's just that things are a bit bad, rather than kind of other stories we've seen like Horizon Zero Dawn is very kind of things are completely different now, and Dark Souls is just a very strange world where things don't really operate the way they normally do, and it's kind of everything's just old and destroyed. Whereas this, it feels like they tried to mesh those styles with having a world that isn't. I mean, they're a friend. We've seen in trailers there are friendly characters.
That
there are still there and live there and will communicate with.
And they'll hang around your, I'm not going to say bonfire, but like med bay. And they've got like side quests for you to do. There's a lot of environmental stuff, as much as you can literally see like it'll have something that tagged on, like say it'll give you a little bit of backstory. If you walk past a tank, it'll say what's in the tank and things like that. Weapon descriptions, item descriptions, stuff like that.
Still uses that sort of thing
that kind
explain the world.
So there's more background if you want it, but the bulk of the story is you'll find it as you're going through the game.
So it's slightly more front-loaded than the kind of guesstimates type stuff.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's the Surge. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do leave us a like, and you might as well hit the subscribe button because it's down around the same area, about the other side of the video. Do tune back in for more of the same. We'll probably have more video stuff on the Surge as we hit release, and also plenty of other video games, of course, as well, as we go through the rest of the year. Thank you very much for watching. For Jordan Ford, I'm Ben Barrett. We'll see you next time.